Hi, and thank you for choosing to listen to Master of Horror, where I give you the scariest paranormal true stories I've ever heard.
Paranormal True Story Number 1, The Basement Entity.
I moved 2 months ago to an old house built in 1914. I lived alone with a couple of cats. Since moving in, I've had weird experiences that I can't explain. To begin, one night I woke up feeling uneasy but wasn't sure why. I went to the bathroom, then I headed to the kitchen for a drink. As soon as I stepped inside, I noticed something strange. All the pantry doors were open. Some were slightly open while others were wide open. Now, I knew I didn't leave them that way before going to bed, as I like to keep things neat and I always close the doors. A couple of weeks later, I was in my home office. There was no TV on or music, just my work computer. It was pretty quiet. Then out of nowhere, my dryer buzzer went off. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I remembered I hadn't been in the basement for at least 3 days, and I didn't do any laundry. The dryer goes off only after it's done with its cycle. It kept going off every few minutes. I sat there in my office staring at the door, just listening to it for about 20 minutes. I knew no one else was in the house, and both my cats were upstairs. I started feeling uneasy, but I forced myself to ignore it. It finally stopped for good. The next day, I was still thinking about it, and I finally decided to go downstairs to the basement, and to my shock and horror, the washer and the dryer were not even plugged in yet. The feeling I felt at that moment, seeing this while standing alone in the dark basement, is something I can't explain. About 2 weeks later, while I was working in my office, I heard a noise from the front of the house. I got up and I walked to the living room. I was curious as to what that noise was when I noticed something strange. I saw that my attic door was open about 6 inches. That door is always closed and latched, and I hadn't touched it. Trying not to think about it too much, I pushed it shut and made sure it was locked in place and went back to my desk. Not even 15 minutes later, I heard another noise. I felt chills go down my spine as I walked to the living room, and sure enough, the attic door was open again, just like before. I just stared at it petrified. There was no reason for it to open on its own, especially not twice in a row. I closed it a second time. There was no wind or draft that was going through the house to have opened the attic door, especially when it was latched shut. My landlord is extremely friendly, so I asked him about the history of the house. He said no one has ever passed away in the house. It was his family's, and he inherited it. He also told me that no previous tenant has ever mentioned anything strange or paranormal. At that point, I was hoping I was imagining it all. I'm not in total fear, but I do know that I'm not alone.
Paranormal Scary True Story Number 2, The Unseen Entity.
I've had some strange experiences before, but nothing like what happened in our new home. I moved in at the end of October, but my wife, kids, and pets didn't join me until the end of December. I spent many nights alone in the empty house. We started by removing all the carpet and painting the walls before we moved our things from the old house. At first, I set up my air mattress in the living room. When we started taking out the carpet, I moved upstairs into the bedroom. My wife and I would share, and that's when strange things began to happen. In my first night in that room, I woke up suddenly hearing something moving quickly around me. Even though my eyesight isn't great, I thought I saw a shadowy figure run by from the corner of my eye. Some nights, I feel like someone was watching me. A few weeks later, I heard a light turning on and off, and sure enough, the bathroom light was doing it by itself. That's when I moved my air mattress downstairs. I told my wife about these events, but she didn't take it seriously. Then nothing happened for about a week. So I thought it was just me being paranoid. That's when I decided to move my air mattress back upstairs to my bedroom. Then, in the middle of the night, it felt like something jumped into my bed with me and snuggled right next to me. At that moment, my fan turned off by itself. It was quiet and pitch black, and I could feel something behind me. I quickly jumped off the air mattress and turned on the bedroom light. Nothing was there. At that point, I was scared to sleep without several lights on, and I felt safer with the bedroom door locked. I was scared, and I prayed for protection. Nothing really happened after that, just some soft, strange movements. A few months later, my son moved in early, which was nice. I hadn't told him about the strange things I experienced. We also brought our cats. We started moving in some basic things, but the house wasn't fully painted yet, and my wife was still living in the other house. One day before school started, my son was using a powered movie theater seat, and our cat Hopper got her tail stuck in it. My son called me at work, so I rushed home. When I got there, I ended up breaking the chair while trying to free her tail. The poor cat's tail was broken in several spots. I don't know if this is connected with the paranormal events that are going on. The last thing that happened was while I was laying down in bed, our cat jumped in bed with me and laid next to me, purring. I started to doze off to sleep, but then the most scariest thing happened. I remembered that our cat doesn't purr. She never has. When I realized this, my body went cold and stiff. I slowly reached over to touch the cat in the dark. I said, "Hopper, is that you?" It then abruptly stopped purring. I laid my hand on it, and it felt ice cold and limp. I screamed and jumped out of the bed, nearly falling down. When I turned on the light, there was nothing there at all. This was the last occurrence, and I know there's more to come. I pray and I hope that these hauntings come to an end.
Paranormal, scary, true story number 3, The Cemetery.
This happened around the middle or end of 1998 in a cemetery in Richmond, Texas. This cemetery is considered one of the scariest around the area. It started as a burial ground, then became a mass grave for soldiers during the Civil War. It was also connected to some bad activities around that time. My sister Rachel has always been interested in creepy things. This caused some issues for her because she was raised by our great-grandparents who are very religious. She moved to Richmond. In her new home, there was a creepy basement room with dirt on the floor. The previous owner, an old man, had passed away in the house. Everything looked dark, like the walls had been burnt. So there was already a weird vibe in the house. Rachel, my sister, was feeling down because of life struggles and money problems. As a kind of escape, she started going on ghost hunts with her friends and dabbling in the paranormal. They often went to Greenwood Cemetery. It was like a safe place for Rachel, in a weird way. She would go there at midnight with her dog, Logan, who was still alive and a great dog. They didn't experience anything too scary, just some weird noises now and then. Then one night, it all changed. She went with her friends and things got really wild. The first time they went, they took lots of pictures. Then one of them went up to a light pole and said, "If there's someone here, please knock back." So her friend knocked on the pole, but nothing happened. A little while later, they heard 2 really loud knocks. They turned around and looked, but didn't see anything. Then suddenly something made them turn their heads towards a gravel road on the other side of the fence. They said just as they turned their heads, they saw 2 dark shapes running down the road. But these things didn't make any noise and seemed like misty clouds. They felt frozen, unable to move, until the shadows had completely left their sight. They hurried out of there, running back to the car for a whole mile. Later, Rachel looked into it and found out that some others had also seen these shadows running down the road. The pictures they took were packed with colorful orbs of all sizes. After some time, they gathered courage to return to the cemetery and went to the scariest part of the cemetery. They were talking about how the place wasn't as scary as they thought it would be. They wanted to see if they could get a reaction because nothing scary had happened yet. And then, out of nowhere, they heard the loudest scream coming from close by. They said it sounded like a woman that was petrified and being tormented. They decided to leave again and headed back to their cars. They sat there for a bit and talked about what had just happened. When one of Rachel's friends had a cat toy laser, they started playing with it while sitting in the car. While her friend was playing with the light, these glowing lights appeared in the trees. Rachel noticed they formed a pattern. It was white lights that were followed by a deep red one. They were not flashlights or made by people. That's when the chain link fence started shaking. They drove off as fast as they could. When they got back home, everything seemed fine. Until they found there was something strange in their closet, and often heard scratching and growling sounds coming from inside. After their experience at Greenwood Cemetery, Logan, the dog, always seemed scared in the house. Also, doors in the basement would open by themselves, especially the one near the dirt room. There often was stomping sounds coming from different rooms, especially when someone was alone. People would hear their names being called while they showered, especially Rachel. At one point, she even heard someone in the restroom with her. I think whatever it was attached itself to Rachel the most because of her dark emotions, and this really fueled the entity. There was just one time when she was alone at night during a power outage. She turned and saw a shapeless dark shadow moving over the furniture and drifting down the hallway. It was headed straight for her. She grabbed Logan and sat on the porch for hours until the others came home. The house was also rented to a guy before them, but he also quickly moved out, most likely because of strange occurrences that also took place. Soon after these occurrences, Rachel found her faith in Jesus Christ and turned her life around. It seems like this kept away any darkness that might still be lingering around her.